game day.
Welcome in to another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. It is draft week, ladies and gentlemen, so we've got a full show to talk about that. But first, we're going to talk the extensions for everybody. We'll cover a mock draft that JP did, and now a guy who is old and restless for the draft to finally get here.
And I'm ready.
It's the old man himself, JP. How are we doing? I can't
Not too
believe
bad.
Thursday, man.
I know, it's crazy. You know, it's funny how, everybody complains about the off season and how long it is, but you have so much to do in the off season. Do have that little bit of a lull for about 2-3 weeks, and then it's just back to the grind again. There's always something to talk about in the off season, always, and we're here for it. I'm ready for the draft. How about you?
Yeah. Look, it's the Chiefs have options. And we're going to talk about what we think are our final, thoughts on what the biggest needs are for Kansas City. And we'll get into that, and we'll see what happens, obviously here in a couple days. But let's just jump into it. We've got some
news.
actual news.
News.
That's news to me. That's news to me.
That's news to me.
News.
So Mark Donovan, Brett Veach, and Andy Reid all received extensions. I think it's pretty weird that Mark Donovan ended up on the same graphic as Brett Veach and Andy Reid, but I digress.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all just like a team. I mean, they're all making their decisions on what except for the Veach, of course. But I think Andy and Donovan are up there to where they can retire whenever they want. Andy, like we talked on this show numerous times, and we heard 2 months ago that Andy was getting an extension, and we talked about it. And
yeah,
it finally happened, and it's a great extension. But I think him and Donovan both are like, okay, do we want to stick around for the ride? Hell yeah, why wouldn't we? So it's kind of where they're at. I mean, they're extended to 2029. Andy is, all of them are really, and it's just such a great thing. Another 5 years with Andy Reid and the crew. I'm happy.
Look, Andy Reid has put himself in the position where it's all on his time, and so seeing him get that 5-year extension is fantastic. This is a guy who got a significant raise. The reporting out there is that it's going to be somewhere north of $20 million. We don't know the exact number because those numbers, unlike player salaries, are not as publicly available. But look, Andy Reid, since 2017, has 130 wins, including the playoffs. He has 7 AFC West championships, 4 AFC West championships, and 3 Super Bowl titles here in Kansas City. So this is a guy that, is only behind Bill Belichick in playoff wins, and has a real chance here in the next, basically during this contract, to end up with the most wins of any head coach in NFL history.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
It's a serious conversation, and it's a real conversation with Andy because he's got for all the years that it took him to get everything in place that he needed, the right coaching, the right quarterback, the right GM, the right organization. He's finally got all of that. Why? And we heard last year that he plans on playing or coaching until he's 70, and that's what he's going to do. He's actually going to be a little older than 70 when he's unless he decides. And don't think he won't tack on a couple more years after that contract's up, because he probably will. If it's still riding high, he may stick around. This is what's keeping him going, man. I'm just happy that he's finally got what he deserves through his career to be able to win championships, continue on with that streak. He's in a perfect situation. It's a perfect storm for him. Why would you hang it up now? That'd be insane.
And I think we can all relate to Andy Reid in this sense that when you have such a good work environment, it makes it go easier to go into work, right?
Absolutely.
Even if you have a tough job, even if your job is mentally or physically tough, you like your coworkers, and that makes your job so much easier to get up and go to in the morning. And that's what Andy Reid has right now.
Yeah.
He has, Brett Veach, who he has been working with since his days back in Philadelphia. He has Patrick Mahomes, who is the most talented quarterback that he has had by far. And he has other guys on the roster that he's built a close relationship with, and guys that are just, it's a good, positive locker room. And so when you have that and you're winning a lot,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it great to go in and work in the morning. So, I think that is a huge part of it, that he's able to just come in and do his job effectively, and it's got to be easy to come into work every day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you want to get up at 4 a.m. or sleep overnight at the stadium, that says a lot. I mean, it's I don't know anybody that wants to get up that early or spend the night at a stadium going over plays and finishing up your playbook, getting ready for a game, getting ready for practice, OTAs, or whatever the case is. He does. He lives in that stadium, and that's okay. I mean, when you're that happy with what you do, it's not really work. It's just not. It's going in and having a blast, and that's exactly what he gets to do. I would love to be in a position that I could go in every day in that stadium and enjoy it, and that's what he does. So, hey, man, more power to him. I think he's going to have a good streak. Hey, Mike Florio, I'm sorry that you are wrong for the 6th or 7th consecutive year that you said Andy Reid was going to retire, that you had sources that Andy Reid was going to retire. This is actually the second extension since he was going to retire from you. You might want to just get off that train, because that train, it's never going to hit the wall while you're doing what you do. You're wrong every time. I love it. You're wrong a lot, but this one you've been really wrong about. And I get it. You're frustrated. The Kansas City Chiefs aren't your team. You're pissed that they're winning all the time. You're mad that Andy's good and you're not. You're mad, your team's not. I don't know what else to tell you, but get off the train, man. He's not going anywhere. With that being said, we got everybody re-signed as far as the coaching staff is concerned. Got a couple of assistants coming in to help other coaches that were fairly new to the system last year that need some help. There's going to be somebody that helps with the wide receiver room, along with the wide receivers coach. We might as well get into it, man. We got a good show here.
Yeah, let's move on to sort of before we get to your mock draft here in a little bit. Let's just get into sort of our general thoughts, final thoughts of the draft before Thursday. What if you were to rank out your number 1, 2, 3, tiered out need for Kansas City? What would it be?
I would say O-line, wide receiver, defensive line.
What specific position?
Left tackle.
Left tackle?
Okay. Yeah, we're going to need a left tackle. Look, man, I'm going to say it now. I don't think the Chiefs are going to go wide receiver in the first round. I just don't. I think they're going to go offensive line. There's way too many wide receivers in the draft class. A lot of them are going to drop, even though everybody's mocking them up to be. It's first. There's so many top 10 picks in this draft. I don't know how anybody can even think that this is real, because every wide receiver in the draft in the first round. They have every quarterback in the first round. They have tight ends in the first round. They have everybody in the first round. They're not. A lot of these wide receivers are going to drop. Teams change their mind, and they start looking at different things. The C and the M pop up on a scattering report. If anybody doesn't know what the C and the M is, it's character and medical. And when those pop up and all the smoke screens are flying around, a lot of people start to fall into that trap. Then they also realize that they're not going to grab somebody out of free agency that they really need in a position that they need. So they change their mind in the draft and they go with someone else. They go with a different position. I wouldn't expect all these wide receivers. Somebody actually had on their show, which is a local show, it's kind of comical, that the Chiefs are going to trade up to number 9. This is pretty amazing to me. They're going to trade up to number 9 for what's his name now? Why can't I think of his name?
What position?
Romo Odunze.
Odunze?
Yeah. I don't know how first of all, the Chiefs would never get up that kind of draft capital for him. There's other people that are in this draft that we're going to need that are not as plentiful through the draft, especially coming into these next couple of years. We're going to need those guys. So if they're going to move up that high in the draft, they're definitely not going to go after him. They're going to go after a Brock Bowers. They're going to go after somebody that they're going to need in 2 or 3 years from now. So I think everybody that's in that mindset probably should let that go by the wayside, because I don't see that happening. What about you?
Well, I was really hoping that you were going to say like wide receiver, because I have now come to the conclusion that I am also thinking that 32 is going to be a tackle. I think that the sexy pick, the fun pick, the exciting pick, the pick that we want as fans is the wide receiver, right? Because the flashy guy, you know, out there catching balls from Patrick Mahomes is the fun pick at 32. But I think you make a good point that this entire offseason, draft season, we've been talking about how deep this wide receiver room is. And what's the difference between, let's say, the 7th wide receiver that you can get at 32 and the 10th or 11th wide receiver that you can get at 64?
Exactly.
Right.
And not only that, there's people out there that no matter how you may love somebody that you think is going to go in the first round, fitment is always a component in this, as far as fitment within the organization, fitment within the team. But there's so many guys out there that will fit within the system. This is not a draft class that there's like 5 or 6 wide receivers and everybody else is just crap. That's really not how this is working out. What's up, Will? This is a very deep wide receiver class, as you said, and there's a lot of guys that can pop up in the 2nd and 3rd round that are extremely talented and will fit right into the system. And what we're looking for in a wide receiver. That's the big key right there, is what we're looking for in a wide receiver.
Yeah, and that's what and that's my point, is that the positional value of a wide receiver and tackle are, you know, very similar, right? You know, the what they're able to do on the field, right? When you get those, it's quarterback. Quarterback is by far the most important, but you can make a valid argument for left tackle or wide receiver, sort of as that next level.
Yeah.
The problem what Kansas City is facing is that you can find wide receivers in the 2nd round that are great guys to add to your room, that are, you know, effective in your system, guys that you can work with. Tackle, it's not exactly like that, because tackles are, you either are or you aren't. You know, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. Now, we have seen that Kansas City has been able to, in the past, work with lesser talented tackles. Kansas City can scheme around them, and Patrick Mahomes does a very good job at protecting his tackles, right? You know, him being able to move out of the pocket and scramble the way that he does. Also, the fact that his arm strength, he's able to zip those balls where they need to go so quickly, right? Those are ways that you can protect mediocre tackles or average tackles. What Kansas City can't do is you can't get a good tackle and turn him into an elite guy. You can't find an average guy and turn him into an elite guy.
Agreed.
You can do that with a wide receiver, right? You can take a good wide receiver and have him get elite level numbers.
Correct.
So if Kansas City is going to find your left tackle for basically the rest of Patrick Mahomes' career, you know, the next 10 years, you're going to have your star-studded left tackle. It has to happen in the 1st round.
Yes.
And I think this is probably without having significant, you know, a significant fall down in the record of your team, right? So if you're always picking, you know, 26 to 32, right? Because you're either making championship games or you're, you know, at least making it to the divisional round every year. This is going to be your best opportunity to find a guy, because this draft is so deep, because of all the COVID guys that have sort of stayed in college a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We're now getting that final influx of talent over the last couple of years. So I think that a guy like a J.C. Latham or a Jordan Morgan. J.C. Latham from Alabama, Jordan Morgan from Arizona, Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. I'm not even going to attempt his name. The guy from Yale, Kieran
Yeah.
is his first name, but I don't even know how to go. The guy from Yale, right? These couple of guys, they all have their pros and cons. But if you're going to pick one of those guys at 32, I think that they could be your left tackle moving forward. And it's kind of gonna suck for some people to watch Kansas City go through this whole process just to take a tackle. Because, like I said, it's not the sexy pick, but if you can get your franchise left tackle for the next, however long, then I think that you should be very happy with it. So I do think that tackle is probably where they go in round 1. But, and I don't know, I would love to see Kansas City trade up to 27 and pick a wide receiver in front of Buffalo, so we can get another one of those clips of Kansas City of Buffalo's draft room just freaking out because Kansas City was able to jump in front of them.
Do you mean this clip?
According to Ian Rappaport, Pacers are trading back.
New England has traded six. Kansas City is now on the clock.
Meanwhile, the Patriots just traded down. The Chiefs just traded up from 29.
Yes, exactly. If we can get now, I'm not. You know me. I'm not a huge proponent of trading up. I'm usually more the trade back kind of guy, just because I think that draft picks or lottery tickets, the more you can get, the better you're off. But if we could jump in front of Buffalo and draft a wide receiver, because Buffalo's going wide receiver after they traded Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
If you could jump in front of Buffalo and take whatever wide receiver, if Brian Thomas Jr. is on the board and you're able to trade with, I think Arizona holds the 27th pick. If you're able to jump in front of Buffalo, who's sitting at 28, and grab a wide receiver, oh man!
Can you just imagine jumping in front of them and Cincinnati at this point? I mean, to jump in front of both of them, but Buffalo, and I can honestly say this: I can see Veach being the devil on this, having that in the back of his mind, going, they fucking decided they didn't want to trade with us. They don't want to trade with us ever. They don't want to let a player come to us. Okay, well, we're not going to let anybody go to you. And just jump right in front of Buffalo. But to jump in front of Cincinnati also would be phenomenal. And I think Cincinnati's at what, 19?
Yeah, you'd have to move up pretty far in order to jump in front of Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to some of these guys, they're moving up to 6.
Well, it's just those are just the conversations that just end up having. Like, Kansas City's not moving up. The farthest Kansas City could move up would be like what they did when they drafted McDuffie, which is the early. He was drafted at 21.
Yeah.
So that's about as far as you're able to move up. And Kansas City had more draft assets back then.
Absolutely. They had 11 at that point.
If Kansas City is going to move up, it's going to cost them, obviously, their first-round pick, and then it'll cost them that third-round pick they got for Snead, right, which is next year. And I don't know if it'll cost you anything else this year, right? If you're only moving up a couple spots in the first round, going from 32 to 29 is not that expensive. But you got to remember, too, Brett Veach, during his press conference last week, I think on Friday, maybe it was Thursday, he talked about how he has 212 players on his draft board.
Yeah.
15 to 18 of them, 16 to 18 of them are quote-unquote first-round guys.
Yeah.
Which leads to this conversation where Kansas City, there's a good chance when Kansas City is picking at 32 on Thursday, they do not have a guy up on their board that's left with a first-round grade, which means Kansas City will be picking the best player available.
Correct.
Personally, I think that's what happened during the Felix Anudike-Uzomah pick last year. I don't think they view Felix as a first-round pick. I think they saw him. saw what he could be, saw the potential there, realized that he has a lot of upside, so let's grab him. That's what I think that pick was. And I think there's a chance that Kansas City ends up falling back in that same sort of position. And if Kansas City ends up picking a defensive lineman, another project guy, or another project kind of corner, I think that's going to upset a lot of people. Now, my question to you is, JP, would that be a problem for you if they ended up picking a project player, especially if it's a defensive guy
You mean at 32?
at 32?
I mean, not really. I guess it would. It's really not going to fill any position of need at this point because we have that position really there. I mean, it wouldn't work out. Wouldn't work out in our favor to go that route. I think it would kind of annoy me. But I do know this: there are a couple of teams out there that are willing to trade with the Chiefs during the draft in the first round. So if it comes down to the point where they, maybe their player's gone, a couple of the players are gone, but there's a couple left, and they decide to make a trade with somebody, I think that might happen. I think it could happen. Is it something that's going to happen right off the bat? Probably not. But I think it's something that as the draft goes along, those first 10 or 15, 18 picks go through, then you're going to see the Chiefs go, well, what do we do now? Do we want a repeat of last year? That's going to suck. So we might have to take and bite the bullet a little bit and move up to where we want to be. He said my pick is Kingsley Suamata CB. Oh, I like McKinstry. Now that, and look, I will say this. We can get into my draft, and that's kind of what on my mock draft, but I like Kool-Aid and I love Leggett. And I think those two guys, I don't think Leggett is going to, if he's not picked by the time Kansas City hits 32 or even close to there, say if it's at 25, 26, and they have it, and he hasn't been picked, I have a feeling he's going to go in the second round. That's what I think is going to happen with him. With all the wide receivers are in this class and the positions of needs that all these teams have right now. I mean, look, the Broncos just signed Zach Wilson, and sounds like he's going to be their starter from what other people are saying. Now, I don't know how true that is, but they're saying that he's going to be the starter for the Broncos. They definitely have to beef up their O-line. They don't have a choice. They've got to make some moves. They've got so many positions in need. Wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, cornerbacks. I mean, they're raped. They don't even, they need everybody. They got to fill every position. There's a lot of teams out there that are in that same boat. They're not completely stacked in every position. So that's why I think this draft is going to change. I guess I should say it's going to fluctuate compared to what everybody seems to think their mock draft is going to look like. They've got the first 4 or 5 picks, all quarterbacks. Then they've got the next one, a tight end, then an offensive lineman. Then you've got, if you look at all the mock drafts, then they've got all the wide receivers going in the first round. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think you've got guys out there that teams that really need help in so many positions that they're going to grab who they want to grab quickly. They do it every year. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting, but I don't see a lot of these players that are first round draft picks staying in the first round.
Yeah. All right. I got another question for you. I think Kansas City, if they're trading up, their best chance is 27 with the Cardinals, 26 with the Buccaneers, and 25 with the Packers. I think that's right around the same. I think that's right around the area. All NFC teams. None of those teams have any reason to say no to a trade, especially a team like the Buccaneers who needs the assets to rebuild, right? To continue to rebuild, I should say. If Kansas City trades up, they are drafting blank. What position?
If they trade up, I think it depends on where they land.
We're talking mid 20s.
If they're interested in a particular wide receiver, or I'm going to say this, if a tight end is available, a certain tight end is available still, then that's who they're going to go after.
Stop it.
That might be a CB. I don't know who they would grab. Our cornerback room is pretty stacked.
I would if they trade up. I think there are two things. One, to me, it's got to be a tackle, right? Because this goes back to what's the difference between wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 10?
Very true.
The difference between tackle 4 and tackle 6 is astronomical. So if you're trading up, to me, it's got to go be a tackle. I think that for the first 3 rounds, in no particular order, I think you need to go tackle, wide receiver, and then probably guard. If not guard, then defensive line.
I think I agree with some of that. I don't know after the first 3. I think if you're not picking a tight end early, you've got to get a tight end that you really believe in. You've got to get somebody that can mentor under Kelsey right now, because when he goes, regardless of what anybody thinks, that's going to be a blow to this football team. It's that simple. And you've got to find somebody to fill his shoes.
This is where I just disagree with you. Where when Travis Kelsey leaves, I think it's a false. I think it's just a fallacy to say we need to replace Travis Kelsey, because you're not going to replace Travis.
No, you're not going to replace him, but you got to have somebody that can fill some of his shoes, because he's a huge proponent in this offense. Huge. I mean, the guy had an off season and had almost 1,000 yards. First non-1,000-yard game or season in 7 years? I don't know, man. That's a tough tough position with him as your leader in the tight end room. He's a hard player to replace.
Right, and that's why I think that the idea of going out and replacing him, you shouldn't go out and replace him as a tight end. You need to be looking to replace his production in the room, and that's probably going to come from a wide receiver room. I don't think if Kansas City is going to take a tight end, Ben Sinnott from K-State.
Sinnott, yeah, he's good.
That's the guy that I would look at. Kansas City is not getting Brock Bowers, so don't even float that out there.
All I'm saying is if he was available,
trading down for
I'm
Brock
not saying
Bowers.
that. I'm saying if he's available, if they decide to trade up in the draft, and he's available at 24, 25, 26, whoever we trade with, you think they wouldn't go after him? You're crazy. You're out of your mind. If he's still available in the mid-20s and the Chiefs trade up there, he'd be the first player they grab. Then they would go after everybody else. That's a no-brainer. Any team with any sense that has any type of coaching that can handle a tight end or coach a tight end would grab him. Teams that don't have it would grab him. They don't care if they destroy somebody's career and they don't make them look, they don't have the production. They just want somebody that is him. Am I saying he'll be available? Probably not. I think Cincinnati is going to try and grab him because they want to be us so bad. There's a lot of teams out there that want him. If he's still available, what's Cincinnati's pick? Is it 17 or 19?
18.
18. If he was available at 18, they'd snag him in a minute. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try to trade up to grab him because they want to be us so badly. And he's the closest thing in the last couple of years that is he's the closest thing to Kelsey you're going to find right now. The difference is are these teams able to coach him up to where he can produce the same way? And a lot of teams are not. We see that with Dalton Kincaid. He had a good season, but he would have had a better season if he'd have been on a different football team.
Right.
So,
and once again, this is kind of the boring take, right? To me, Kansas City, one of the better things you could do is trade out of the first round. I think that it would be a great opportunity for Kansas City to trade from 32 if Washington wants to move back into the first round. Let's say there's a tackle that they really like or there's a defensive lineman they really like, because the power of that fifth-year option for premium positions is there. So if Kansas City could trade from 32 to 36 and pick up the 100th overall pick from Washington, I think that that's extremely beneficial. Moving from trading out with, I don't know, a team like New England, if they're, once again, they need to pick up a wide receiver. they want to move back in to get that 5th-year option, you could pick up 34 overall, so you're only moving back a couple of spots, and you can pick up 103 overall, so you get a 4th-round pick out of it. Something like that, some combination of let's stay in the 30s, right? For would that be Friday? So I still pick early on Friday, and I pick a late 3rd, early 4th-round pick to add on there just to try and get yourself a couple of picks, one extra pick, because I've been saying this, and I still fully believe it, that the value of this draft is still in that 3rd round area because there's a lot of defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, corners, guys like that are probably, the 5th, 6th guys on the board at their position, but they're still really good. And Kansas City doesn't need to get a starter at a lot of positions, but they do need to add some depth. And so if you can get a, 3rd corner on your roster, right, with the 100th overall pick, or you use the 100th overall pick to draft Cooper Beebe out of K-State, the guard, who can play both guard positions and played a little bit of tackle, right? Or you can draft a defensive interior guy, right? We've gone over the different guys like from Clemson and LSU. That is, I think, something that Kansas City really should be interested in, and you should be able to let that phone ring and talk to some of these teams, because moving from 32 and trading with Arizona or Washington or New England, even Green Bay at 41, I think would be extremely valuable, so you can continue to get good players in the 3rd round, because there truly is a lot of value there.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't see Veach doing that. I just don't. I mean, I look at some of these teams in the league and look at the things that they need. Look at the Saints. Look at this. They're a great example. They are they're like a mid-tier market team. They're a mid-level team. They're never going to, I mean, at this point, it doesn't look like they're ever going to be that team to take you over the top. But in the same aspect, I think they're going to go after a quarterback. I know they have Carr, but Carr didn't really do much last year. Don't know, and they front loaded his contract to where he gets so much of his money. Even if they trade away from him in 2025, they're still going to have a $21.5 million cap hit.
Yeah.
But at some point, I think they're going to go after a quarterback this year. I think they have 2 first-round picks.
The Saints have the 14th overall pick and the 45th overall pick.
The 45th. I think they might go after a quarterback in the 1st round. And then in the 2nd round, we'll see where they end up at. But you might see that. And that's going to adjust how this draft goes.
There is always a curveball that gets thrown. Now,
Absolutely.
I do think Minnesota's trading up to 4 or 5 overall, and they're drafting a quarterback.
I think so too, yeah.
That's the worst kept secret in the draft at this point.
Yeah.
You don't trade it. You don't a month ago trade for a 2nd first-round pick, let your veteran quarterback walk, and not draft a quarterback.
Exactly.
Now, what quarterback you think they're going to go after, that's up for discussion. I just know it's not going to be Caleb Williams because he's going to the Bears.
Yeah,
but if whatever other quarterback, you think is going to be available there, that's a whole other discussion. But like Minnesota's trading up, and I feel like we're going to see another team move up and sort of be that surprise. Is a team Are the Vikings going to trade with the Chargers to move in front to draft their quarterback? Are we going to see a team, I don't even, like Denver or Las Vegas, try and move up to draft their quarterback? I know that Bo Nix has been talked about going to Denver a lot. We know that there are plenty of quarterback needy teams, and drafting a quarterback in the NFL is a very expensive game of musical chairs, where there's only so many seats, and there are way more guys trying to find quarterbacks. So
when the Raiders are picking at 13, do you think they're not going to go after a quarterback?
Right. I mean, you're talking 11, 12, 13, and you bringing up New Orleans at 14. All of those, you could make a real argument that all of those teams need quarterbacks. We know that Washington, Chicago, and New England all need quarterbacks. The Giants, who are drafting at 6, what do they think of Daniel Jones? They could probably use a quarterback. Tennessee, are you really convinced that the Mayo Man is your quarterback of the future? I don't know. Maybe the Titans are looking to draft a quarterback. Like, hell, Pittsburgh at 20. I know you traded for Justin Fields, but that contract you don't have to stick by him. And you've got Russell Wilson as your quarterback. So you might be able, if a guy slides to you, you might be looking to draft a quarterback. So there's just a handful of teams right there, and that's without looking at any other team in the NFL right now. All of those teams, you can make a real argument that they would love to go after a quarterback in the first round. So there are going to be teams trying to move up, trying to jump in front of some of these other teams, and trying to grab quarterbacks. So there's going to be a curveball thrown in there. And what's fun about it is we don't know who it's going to be, and somebody's going to make a big move. And I'll be interested to see, what it is. Because if you're a Chiefs fan, you want as many quarterbacks to go in the
Early.
first round as possible.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 4, and the Vikings draft or move up with the Chargers to draft a quarterback at 5, then you've essentially, Kansas City is now drafting at 28th overall, because you were never looking at quarterbacks to begin with. So the more quarterbacks that go, the better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as far as the Chargers are concerned, I think they're pretty sold on Alt. And if they can get him early, they will. But I don't know if he's going to necessarily go at 6. But I think if they had an opportunity to grab him early and he's available, they will. But I agree with you. I mean, I would rather have – and honestly, every one of those picks you just mentioned throws a wrench in it. It's not just one or two. It's every one of them. There's a couple of the guarantees. Caleb Williams, that's a guarantee. Marvin Harrison Jr., that's a guarantee. We really don't know where all these other teams are going. So if they decide to go quarterback early, that just leaves all those other players that everybody thinks are going to go in the top 10, that pushes them out. And that's what I think is going to happen in this draft. I think you're going to see a lot of guys drop, and some of them are going to drop hard. Some of them won't, but some of them are going to drop pretty hard. Some of them are going to fall out of the first into the second. So it's going to be interesting. As far as the Raiders are concerned, I agree. I think they are definitely going to get. I think they're going to go after a quarterback. I don't think they're sold on either one of their quarterbacks. Philip said the same thing. They're not sold on either one of those guys. Why wouldn't they go after a quarterback? They still don't really have one. I mean, they've got a couple of bodies, but they don't have a real quarterback. So they're trying to compete in the AFC West. I don't know why they wouldn't go after a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think we've ever seen a draft before, and maybe I'm wrong, but at least not in recent memory, where we're starting to get in the early teens, and you're arguing that those, you've got 3 teams immediately that are, drafts that are quarterback needy like that. I mean, usually the ones that are needy, it's like 1 through 6, and after that, we aren't really talking about quarterback that much. But it's such a weird scenario because Minnesota lost their quarterback, that they were 11th overall because their quarterback was lost to injury. Denver went on a couple of game winning streak, and so they looked, better. And the Raiders had a shockingly new head coach, interim head coach sort of boost.
Got everybody fired up, yeah.
Right. And so you've got just multiple teams right there that are undeniably quarterback needy, but they, for all different reasons, were able to not completely lose out.
Correct.
And so, this is where we're sitting.
Correct.
All right. You have a mock draft. I did one last week when I was on the show. You have one now, so I will throw it over to you.
Maybe some unpopular opinions on there, but this is how I think it might play out.
All right. Well, take it away.
All right, let me pull up my list. I thought Thiz had it pulled up on the sheet on the show, but maybe not. I know he's been pretty tied up, so let's take a look. There we go. He's got him. There he is. I think Mims, left tackle, Kansas City at 32 or earlier. I think he is a perfect fit for this team. Perfect fit for the need. A lot of people say he's not going to go in the first round. May not, but he's a fit. And if the Chiefs want to go in that position, he'd be the perfect fit for us. Who you got? What's the next one, Tiz? Leggett. I think he's going to drop to number 2, second round. If the Chiefs do move up in the second round if it's needed. I think he'd be the perfect wide receiver for this system. From what I understand, the Chiefs really like him. He's actually worked out with the Chiefs and a couple other teams as well, but the Chiefs love this kid. And I think he would be a perfect fit. Round 2 wide receiver. Should be a first round pick, but I think it's going to get thrown off. He's the one that I think is going to fall. Mims and Leggett. We got third round Thiz. There we go. Now, I know people probably don't look at this kid as being one of the better cornerbacks in the league or in the draft, but I tell you what, this kid's got all the skills. He'd be a perfect fit in this system, and he'd be in that perfect range for where we're going to pick at. DJ James got all the skills, very strong work ethic, extremely high football IQ, and he's one of those guys that can learn very quickly, and I think he would fit well.
All right, let's take a break there, and let's talk about your first 3 picks.
Okay.
I seriously, let's pull the curtain back a little bit. Let's pull the
Pull it
curtain back
back.
a little bit.
Rip it down.
When
Who gives a shit?
when we show prep, right? We have an
Yeah.
idea of what we want to talk about, but like
Yeah.
when we're doing these mock drafts and stuff, we haven't been telling each other our picks,
No.
so that way when we have the conversations, it's more like genuine and upfront.
Exactly.
I am shocked that we agree on the first one. It blows my mind that we are in agreement that it was left tackle. I swear when I was coming on the show today and we were going to talk about sort of our final thoughts on the draft, I swear you were going to go wide receiver and we were going to have to go back and forth for 15 minutes about positional value. And we're on the same page, and it's just like I had this whole thing that I was going to talk about. I had bullet points on my document, and I don't get to use any of them. You just wasted like 7 minutes of my life of
I'm sorry
typing
to
this
help
stuff
you.
out. So we don't have to talk about it.
That's funny.
Moving on to 2. I'm not a huge Leggett fan, but a lot of that is just because I like a lot of the players that are available in front of him. But picking a wide receiver at 64, guys like Troy Franklin, guys like Brian Thomas Jr. are just going to be gone. So it's hard to really knock a pick like that when you just aren't exactly sure where what other wide receivers are there. In principle, I like the pick, right? Going tackle, wide receiver. And then with the third round pick at corner, I mean, first of all, if that's what the Chiefs do, I don't care who they pick, just the position itself.
Mm-hmm.
If Brett Veach is drafting a corner, then I have no problem with it, right? Just because he and his team are obviously able to identify top corner talent. I know that DJ James is one of the upper athletes at the cornerback position. Other than that, I don't know a ton about him, and I didn't watch a lot of Auburn football, to be completely honest with you. But I know that coming out, his athleticism scores were high for the cornerbacks, and he's also a taller cornerback. So
that's what I liked about him. He's tall.
Yeah, so just based on that, and if Kansas City drafts a corner, I really don't need to know a ton about him.
Yeah, I don't think Mims had just a handful of career starts. I think Mims did pretty well through his career.
So Mims, he's a guy he's one of those guys that it's going to take development, but he's got high potential. So which is the perfect scenario you want for picking a tackle at 32?
Well,
right?
And in this system, absolutely, because as you said before, and we know Mahomes is very good at protecting his tackles.
He does.
So it would be a learning curve for him, but he's in a perfect position to learn well and learn quickly because you do have a great quarterback that can help you. And this kid's got a really high motor, very strong, very athletic. I like the way his foot placement is awesome. His arms are extremely strong. He knows exactly how to open a hole and close a hole and protect your quarterback. He's done a great job of it. I like him.
All right, let's move on to your 4th and 5th round picks, and then we can talk about those.
Sounds good. I can't see it. There we go. Oh, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker. We need another linebacker. I don't think they're not going to draft one. This kid, all I could say is that I look at Willie Gay Jr. and I think, okay, this guy is probably the most athletic linebacker I've seen in a very long time. He's no longer here. Jeremiah Trotter is right there as far as athleticism is concerned. He's got great vision. He can not only run block, he can pass block. He's just a phenomenal player. I think he's going to go in the 4th round, and he would be perfect for us, perfect for our system. We need to fill that hole. We do have great linebackers. I still think we need another one.
Right.
I don't know if you can replace Willie Gay's production with who we have right now. Willie was north, south, east, west, all over the field, a tremendous tackler, and this kid does the same thing.
And here's the thing too. When they re-sign Tranquil to a 3-year deal,
Correct.
there's a chance that they don't re-sign Nick Bolton, right? And
Yeah.
I know that is a tough conversation for a lot of people to hear because there's a lot of Chiefs fans that are also Mizzou's fans. So it's kind of tough to hear that. But even if Kansas City wants to re-sign Nick Bolton, there's a chance that he just gets priced out somewhere else.
Yeah.
So Kansas City does need to draft a linebacker, and it's sort of that let's draft our problems a year ahead, right?
Correct.
So we aren't falling behind. And I think that's where drafting a linebacker, especially in round 4, it's a lower positional value. Drafting a guy 4th and he becomes your 3rd or 4th linebacker this year, totally worth it.
Absolutely. And you never know. He could be that next Bolton that ends up getting the green dot his rookie season. He's got an extremely high IQ, and he's so fast. I mean, he's extremely quick. He's very quick off the ball, knows exactly where to be all the time. He can read out offenses very well. I think he'd be a phenomenal fit within the system. We got number 5, I think, coming up, right?
Yeah.
Now.
What a goofy picture.
It is a goofy picture. I like this kid. He's a great edge rusher, a lot of speed, extremely fast off the ball, a motor that never quits. A lot of people don't really, I guess, how should I say this? They don't look at him as one of the better picks in the draft. I will watch a lot of his film. This kid has got a motor that doesn't quit. His speed and his motor reminds me of Karlaftis. He's just constantly moving and moving and moving. He's raw, and he's going to need another Jared Allen. He's going to need a little bit of discipline because he's fucking crazy. He's one of those guys that he hits you and then he'll hit you again, and then he might hit you a 3rd time and kick you in the head on the way by. He's going to need a little bit of discipline, but I like that about him, and that's what we're kind of missing in the NFL is somebody that has that constant grind, and he's got it. This kid's got it, and he's a perfect 5th round pick early in the draft.
Look, I've been talking about this for 2 months now, that there are 3 positions you should take a swing at every year. It's corner, pass rusher, and wide receiver. So You're checking all of that off.
Yeah, and with Joe Cullen at the Realm, that kid's got the perfect scenario to learn from Joe Cullen.
And if you're a 5th round pick, I don't whatever I get from you is just bonus.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
If I don't get anything from you, if you end up, flunking out of the NFL, it is what it is. It won't bother me. You're a 5th round pick. I wasn't expecting much of you anyways. So if you're that guy that, comes in and I'm able to just get some every once in a while pass rush from you, that also works for me too. Whatever you get in the 5th round from a pass rusher like that is just bonus money, because the odds are whatever you're picking from here on out, from the 5th on out, anything that you're getting from the guys that you're drafting is bonus. So,
well, Fizz thinks we're in an alternate universe because we're agreeing on things.
I know this is crazy,
man. I know this is weird. I'm not used to it, and I'm probably going to check my pulse when we get off the show because this is not normal. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's got all of the attributes to be phenomenal in the system. I think, as you said, when they picked FAU, it was almost like, oh shit, who do we have left type of thing. And it was kind of too late not to pick him because you couldn't. I mean, last year they couldn't trade with anybody. I mean, Dallas wouldn't even trade with them. This year they have an opportunity to grab somebody out of the 5th round that may outperform him. That's just my opinion. So we'll see what happens. We got another 5th round pick coming up. Okay, we need a safety. There's no doubt about that. We're going to have a safety. Jackson plays with good bend and power. Yeah, I agree with you, man. He is strong at the point of attack. He's a beast. Darion Taylor-Demerson. Now, this kid, safety out of Texas Tech. First of all, out of Texas Tech says a lot to me. This is a compensatory pick, so we have an opportunity to just grab somebody that can learn from Justin Reed, learn from the guys in the room, and then build off of that. He's got extremely high motor, a lot of potential, extremely athletic, very quick, got the right size, which I'm happy about, which we kind of tend to ignore the fact that some of these safeties are pretty small, height-wise. They're not very tall. He's a pretty tall kid. But I think he's got all the attributes to learn from the best. Right now, we're sitting in a position that we're going to need one that is going to be able to step up at any point. We need the depth. He's a great depth piece for now. Can he fill in shoes later on? Probably so. But right now, he'd be a great pick at the last pick in the 5th round. I think he'd be a perfect pick for us.
Getting a safety, and I know in my mock draft I had one as well. My thing is that Shamari Connor, I think, is going to be a huge part of this team next year. So once again, I'm not going to pick a huge fight about what it is. I talked about on last Tuesday that you need more depth in your linebacker and safety / corner rooms because you're going to need more of them from special teams this year than you have in the past. So having more safeties and corners and 5th linebackers type guys is going to be beneficial. I do, and we'll see what you do with your final pick. But I think I do have a problem with your draft. But we'll see. We'll see.
Well, you finally got a problem with it. Whoa, let me.
I think so.
Now we're getting back to normal.
See. I was hoping that you would.
I know what you wanted to pick in the 5th round, but I think there's high potential in the 7th round for that same position.
All right, let's see what you got next.
Okay.
Perfect pick. Perfect. No, you don't even need to say anything. This is just perfect. We can leave his face up there. We can just Isaiah Davis, South Dakota State. Perfect pick. We can move on.
Have you seen this kid play?
Yes, he was in my maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had him as my draft candidate.
That kid is a fucking beast.
I know.
Oh my God. And they're ghosting him like none other, and I hope they ghost him right into our hands because he is the perfect backup to Pacheco.
I know, dude. This is the best. This is the best pick you've had This is the best pick you've had the entire draft season. This is the best one. I'm talking about Isaiah Davis. He's the guy. He is the backup to Pacheco that we need. He's used in the run game. He's used in the pass game. He's used in run blocking. He's big, so even though he went to a smaller school, you know that the athleticism and the size difference in the NFL isn't going to be a problem. Exactly. He can bull rush people. He's got good footwork to where he can avoid people, like avoid tackles. Yeah, hell yeah. Isaiah Davis,
what I like? Also, he can
Kansas
catch
City
out of the backfield so well. People God damn, go look at his film.
Make him the new Jerick McKinnon.
Absolutely. His ability to catch out of the backfield was astounding to me, and people are just ghosting him like nothing, and I'm glad. Keep ghosting him, because when he falls to the 7th round and we grab him, I'm going to run down the strip, because that'll make me so happy to see this kid on our team.
He was, yes, Philip, he was in my last mock draft.
I didn't get to see it because you know why, but
yeah, I know, but
yeah,
I'm telling you, I've been keeping an eye on him for a while. I love guys that go to running backs that go to smaller schools and are able to just be that guy because they're not depending on their offensive line to block these other people. The production that they get is purely from them.
Yep.
Bring it on,
That's
baby.
exactly
Let's
why.
go.
Man, I mean, and look, if you look at his offensive line, I mean,
None of them
not
are going to
great.
make it into the NFL.
Hell no. Those guys, I mean, I think they're just getting into the draft for like, you know, I don't know how to say it. Maybe just to make them feel better about themselves. They will not make it to the NFL. None of them will. None of their offensive line will make it. Now, maybe as an undrafted free agent, maybe one, just to see if they work out. They'll hang on the fence for a while and be a walk-on somewhere. But, man, this kid, it's all about him.
Yeah,
Everything he does is him. So,
yeah, Kansas City, if they walk away with him, he's going to be the guy that I'm talking about for next couple of months because I do think that he really has the potential to be that guy.
And if you look at his medical and his character, because I don't know if anybody's ever seen a scouting chart, but that M and that C means a whole lot. And not for these smokescreen jackoffs that put it out on Twitter, but he has no real issues. His character's flawless. I don't think kid's ever even had a parking ticket. His medical's phenomenal. I don't know, man. I'm excited about that kid. I hope we grab him.
My problem with your draft is that you didn't draft a guard.
I didn't.
If you
draft a
could
guard.
replace your safety or corner with a guard, then I think that in principle, your draft at what positions you drafted them and where you drafted them, I think it matches up perfectly with what Kansas City needs. And you supplement what Kansas City really needs now, as well as preventing or solving problems before they rise up. I think the only thing you're missing is Kansas City drafting a guard, and maybe that has Kansas City using that 3rd round pick for next year. Maybe you have them trading that for a pick this year, and in the 4th round pick, something like that, they end up coming up and drafting a guard. Now, but I think
look at it. We have a lot
City
of depth there in the guard. That's why for this year we have some depth. So I wasn't real concerned about grabbing a guard this year. I mean, I agree. It could be. I mean, you could swap a guard for a safety right now. I wouldn't swap him for a corner, but I'd swap him for a safety if you had to.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I think we're okay. I mean, but you never know.
Drafting a guard is one of those things where you need to protect yourself from the future. You have some options. I know that both the Michigan guards are up for, draft this year. That Christian Hayes from, what is it? Is it UConn, I think?
Yeah.
And then Cooper Beebe, who I've been on board with, since I saw him pancake 2 guys in one play. That I do think that you do need to draft a guard, especially because that not only adds depth for this year, but you're not going to be able to pay Trey Smith and keep Tooney on your roster at the same time.
No, I think Tooney is, well, he did restructure, and I think he might even restructure again if they get to another Super Bowl this year. He might restructure again just to stick around. If that happens, then yeah, I still think we have depth, but who knows? I mean, he did restructure, and I think he's locked in through 2025 with that restructure.
Other than that, I think it's a pretty good mock draft. I mean, I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised that we agree on so many things. This is so new for us.
Yeah,
we've been doing this podcast together for like 2 years, and most of the time we just go back and forth about how you're wrong.
Or you're wrong. I mean, we're never on board with who's right, and usually I'm right, but it's strange. I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to have to talk to my wife about this and see if I can. I don't know. It's weird. I'm going to think about this for a week or two. But it's looking at how the Chiefs or how this is playing out for the Chiefs right now. The fact that really nobody, I mean, other than a couple teams will trade with them, nobody will really trade with them in the first round. I don't think they really want to trade up in the first round, even though Veach, he'll throw out some smoke screens and say, yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in trading up in the first round. The only way that's going to happen is if there's a certain 2 players that are absolutely right there that he really wants. And I just don't see it happening. I just can't see it.
My final thought, and then we can end the show, is this. Whoever Kansas City ends up going after, I don't think that you could necessarily say that it's the wrong choice.
Exactly.
Because they're in such a spot to where they don't have a glaring need other than that left tackle, but Donovan Smith is still out there. So
Yeah, he's still sitting at home waiting. So.
right. So Kansas City doesn't have a glaring need right now, and Kansas City is at the point where you just are really going to get best player available with positional value. So if Kansas City ends up getting a wide receiver, which I do think is totally possible, Kansas City moves up and drafts a tackle, totally possible. I think there's a real chance that Kansas City ends up drafting an interior defensive lineman / pass rusher, because it just will be one of those things where, we saw a ton of quarterbacks and a ton of wide receivers go, and not a lot of pass rushers ended up going in the first round. And like I said, you can never have too many of those. So maybe Kansas City ends up drafting a pass rusher, whether it's an interior guy or not. I don't think that Kansas City could really go wrong with the decision that they make unless they pull an early 2000s Raiders and draft a punter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reason I went edge is because, we do have Buggs sitting in the practice squad right now. He's a very capable player. He's an interior guy. He can play both. But
yeah, and you got to remember, Omenahu is going to be out for probably about half the season.
He's talking like he's not going to be, but you never know. I mean, he may be out for.
We need to be realistic. You should expect him to be gone for about half the season, and if he's not, that's a luxury. But you need to be planning for him to be gone for about half the season. So Kansas City really needs to look at the roster that they have constructed right now and subtract a defensive interior guy with there.
Well, and I think that's where they're looking at Buggs at. I think they're seeing Buggs as a good fill-in for him for right now.
If you could find a guy, there are a lot of interior guys, even edge guys, this draft that kind of play both spots. And so if you end up drafting one that can move around, once again, I don't think you can really go wrong in the first round. I just think that there are definitely higher tier needs, which is why we had that conversation earlier in the show, which is, what are your top needs? But ultimately, when we have these conversations, we need to realize that you're picking at 32. And Brett Veach literally said that they have 16 to 18 guys marked as first-round talents, and some of those are quarterbacks. Some of those are wide receivers like Marvin Harrison Jr., which you will never draft. And some of those are tackles like Joe Alt, who you will never be able to get. So, when you really think about it, the quote first-round talent, what Kansas City will be realistically able to draft, I mean, that sucks up so quickly that there's really only going to be a couple of players that Kansas City will have the realistic opportunity to draft that are quote-unquote first-round talent.
I agree. And the one thing I really like Devondre Sweat. Now, that kid there, I mean, if somehow we ended up with him, that'd be phenomenal. I don't know that that'll happen, but he would be a phenomenal fit in our system. Boyd, I like Boyd a lot. I don't know, looking at how we operate, I don't know if he's the best fit. I think he would fit, but I think it would take a little bit more to get him to fit in the system. McKinley's awesome. I mean, there's so many guys. That's what I love about this draft, is that really no matter where we pick, and looking at how we've done over the last really 4 years in the draft, really no matter where we pick, we're in a pretty good position. A lot of people assume we need to pick a wide receiver no matter what because of the situation with Rice, and that's absolutely not true. We don't absolutely have to pick a wide receiver because of the situation Rice is in. We don't even know what's going to happen with Rice for sure. What I'm hearing is 4 to 6 games. I've heard that for a while now. I think that's still what's going to happen. And now it's starting to come out in a few places that they're assuming 4 to 6 games, versus everybody else that seems to think it's going to be a year or permanent suspension and all this other bullshit. I mean, look, I'm going to say this because it's frustrating. We hear about Henry Ruggs all the time, and supposedly he was kicked out of the league. He was not kicked out of the league. I'm going to say this now. When his prison sentence is over with, which will probably end in 2025 with good behavior, because he got time served on a 3 to 10 year sentence, he's going to get out in 3 years. As long as he doesn't do anything stupid. He has the opportunity to get back in the NFL. No one's saying he could never play the game again. They're just saying he's out because he's in prison. If he didn't go to prison, he'd have been suspended for a year and been back in the league. He can come back to the league. Rice is not going to get jail time. He's going to get a 4 to 6 game suspension. He's already been down there working out with Mahomes. We don't even know when that 4 to 6 games is going to happen. It could happen halfway through the season. We don't know. So I think we have to really look at the draft as basically just an add-on. It's not really a replacement. It's an add-on right now. We're just adding on to what we have. The wide receiver room is the wide receiver in this draft is extremely packed, stacked. I mean, it's insane. I mean, you could pull a 4th-round wide receiver and get great production out of them. That's how good they are and how many of them that are good. We're in pretty good position. I'm not too concerned. Yep. Look, to pick at 32 or the last pick in every draft or in every round is the cost to be the boss. It just is what it is. As long as we're winning Super Bowls, I'm perfectly happy picking at 32. I'm perfectly happy at picking at 64. I'm okay with that shit. Give me all the rings you can give me, and I'll take the 32, the 64, the 96, whatever it is, we'll take them.
Right.
Because we've done really well over the last 4 years, and really last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, we did really well with the draft picks that we've gotten. I'm not complaining.
And who knows? Kansas City may not be drafting at 32. They may be drafting at 31 because there's a chance the Falcons lose their pick because of what they did with Kirk Cousins.
Exactly.
So
exactly. And I'm not going to complain about that either. If we
get,
we can move up by default, then okay, I'm good with that.
Oh yeah. All right. That's it for today.
Yeah.
So
we appreciate everybody for joining. We're gonna try and do this. Do you want to do a live draft, first round draft show? Quentin?
Me? I have work obligations that I have to do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we're going to try. If anybody else wants to jump on, we will do a first round draft show. Get everybody in, get their picks beforehand, and we'll see who's right. We'll see who gets them right. Maybe we'll figure out a way of getting Foco Sports to give you something if you are right in the first round, and we'll go from there. Thiz will be here. So everybody that's on, join, tell your friends. We're going to do a first round live draft show. If it goes well, we may do Saturday and Sunday as well. Or I'm sorry, Friday and Saturday. So with that being said, we appreciate, and Philip will be here, so we're in good shape. We appreciate everybody for joining, and we will talk to you guys again on Thursday. Draft day, baby. Thanks, Joe.
See ya.
Peace out, everybody.